Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Snyder from numberball.com here for one final preview as this season comes to a close. That's right, Saturday afternoon, it is the Champions League final with Manchester City facing off against Chelsea. We have a nice showdown slate on DraftKings, 150K GPP, which, if my memory serves me correctly, is the largest showdown GPP we have had this season. But there will be plenty this summer with the Euros happening, so keep an eye on that if you are interested in soccer DFS. But today, I am here to discuss the Champions League final. Before I get into specific plays and bets, which I of course will, just think there's a lot of interesting news and notes and kind of angles to discuss about this game from a general perspective. So let's begin with the odds. We're looking at Manchester City as minus 115 favorites. The match has it's about a 2.5 total, but it's slightly under that right now. So what is that telling us? This could be kind of a tactical slog here, not expected to be a high-scoring match. And that makes a lot of sense when we're looking at a City team that has been very, very good defensively this season, and a Chelsea team that has also been very good defensively under Tuchel since he took over in the second half of the season. Now, both of these teams are from the English Premier League, so we have the benefit of looking at the history between these two teams. And in fact, these two teams have played each other three times in the last calendar month here in 2021. So, interestingly, Chelsea won 2 of those matchups. So the first matchup was between these teams in January. City won that game 3-1. But I think it is important to note that Frank Lampard was still the coach of Chelsea at that time. He was sacked soon after, so maybe not the best comp here. More recently, Chelsea beat Manchester City in the FA Cup. I believe that scoreline was, let me just double check that. That was, I can't find it, but I think that was a 2-1 win. And then most recently, earlier this month in May, Chelsea actually beat Manchester City 1-0 in the Premier League. But again, I think there are some caveats here. Does that mean that Chelsea are the better team and we think they're going to win? No, clearly not. That's not what the line on the game is telling us. But anyone who knows these two teams knows that is not the case either. So let me add a couple more caveats about those games. The FA Cup match and the Premier League match earlier this month, Manchester City did not roll out their best lineup. I'm pretty certain that in both of those matches, Foden, Mahrez, and Gundogan did not start, and Kevin De Bruyne only played the FA Cup match. So we definitely did not see City's best team against Chelsea in either of those matches. So I don't want you to read too much into those results. I think it does tell us that Chelsea do match up pretty well tactically under Tuchel against City, yes. But again, City's best starting 11 that they've been rolling out in the Champions League was not the lineup they put out against Chelsea either time. So I actually think this favors City quite a bit. Number one, because Pep is going to be able to look at those two matches and make the necessary adjustments from the losses. And also because Chelsea, frankly, did not see the Manchester City that they're going to see in this final. So, look, overall, the line favors City, but beyond that, Manchester City have just been the best team in the world this entire season. They're playing so well right now, and they look, frankly, unstoppable, especially with the lineup they've been rolling out in the Champions League. So, if you haven't already guessed it, I do think that Manchester City is going to win this match. Now, if Chelsea are to pull off a victory here, which I do not think is very likely, it's going to probably look something like the Europa League final on Wednesday of this past week. So if you did watch that, it was a match where Manchester United were the far superior team. They dominated the match for large stretches, but Villarreal did manage to get an early goal, take it to penalty kicks. There was a ridiculous penalty kick shootout. Went all the way to the goalkeepers. David De Gea missed, and Villarreal won on penalty. So if Chelsea is to win this match, I think it's going to be something like that, a match that goes into extra time. But my money is on Manchester City winning this match in regular time. All right, let's now get into those DFS plays. At the top of the salary list is, of course, Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best players in the world right now. Such an integral part of what City does on offense. And, he's a no-brainer. You want to play Kevin De Bruyne in a cash or optimal build. Don't even have to think twice about it. So he's the first player I'm going to slot in, a great captain option as well. And on that note, I am going to be discussing, my strategy and thoughts from an optimal perspective. So this is what what you would be thinking if you're building a cash lineup or a small field tournament lineup. Of course, if you're playing the larger field GPPs, really anything goes, and making some decisions based on leverage and finding lower ownership are things you want to think about. So ironically, if you don't hear me mention a player's name in this preview, that might be someone to actually look at in GPPs. But anyway, let's move on and continue talking about some of the optimal plays here. So once we get past Kevin De Bruyne, a player that we know we want to have in our lineup, there's a couple top tier options. There's Riyad Mahrez at 10.4K. There's Mason Mount at 9.6K and Phil Foden at 9.2K. So for me, Mason Mount has been an incredible player for Chelsea this season, probably their best player. However, it's pretty clear to me that I'd rather play Mahrez or Foden or both of them at the expense of Mason Mount. And here's why. Mason Mount is no longer taking a monopoly of set pieces for Chelsea. Reece James, Ben Chilwell are both contributing here. So without a clear role on set pieces, Mason Mount is really just a very expensive attacker that really is going to need a goal or an assist to pay off that type of salary. And guess what? Mahrez and Foden have substantially higher implied scoring odds, and I also think their floors are higher. So for me, it just makes way too much sense to roster Mahrez and or Foden. I would love to play both of them over Mason Mount here. By the way, Mahrez and Foden are also contributing on set pieces for Manchester City, and I think Manchester City will win more corners here. And also, as I mentioned, Mahrez and Foden much more likely to score than Mason Mount, in my opinion. And Mahrez and Foden are actually just in incredible form. That's another thing I'm looking at here. Mahrez has scored or assisted in 8 of his last 10 starts, and Foden has scored or assisted in 8 of his last 9 starts. So these guys are just incredible right now. Would love to roster both of them, and they're really the 1A and 1B to Kevin De Bruyne, who is the top play on the slate. All right, moving on. I'm briefly going to discuss the Chelsea fullbacks. I typically love the Chelsea fullbacks, or wingbacks rather, because they're heavily involved in attack for Chelsea. But here's the thing. Ben Chilwell has kind of become a boomer bust play that I'd rather reserve for GPPs. Don't want to touch him in cash games. And then Reece James, actually, over the last couple matches, something interesting has happened here. He's actually been playing as part of the back three, and Azpilicueta has been playing as the wingback. So I really don't want to touch Reece James because of that, especially at 6.4K. Chilwell, fine for GPP. Really, if I'm looking at a cash play on the Chelsea side, it's going to be Azpilicueta, who is only 4,200 here, and it looks like he will be starting as the wingback. Of course, this is something to monitor when starting lineups come out. But much rather play Azpilicueta over Reece James at this point, given that they really have actually switched roles over the last few matches. Not a guarantee that that will happen again, but certainly something to look at. I think a really interesting play for upside here is Manchester City goalkeeper Ederson. So if you look at the implied scoring odds on this slate, this is a roundabout way to talk about a keeper, but bear with me here. the highest implied scoring odds of any player are Sergio Aguero at about 34%, okay? And he's not going to start. So if we look at the players that are actually going to start this match, I think Gundogan at 28% has the highest implied scoring odds on the slate. So that's like a 1 in 4 chance that they're telling us, that that the odds makers are telling us Gundogan has to score here. Now compare that with Ederson, who has win odds of 50% and clean sheet odds of about 40%. So when you add the clean sheet bonus and the win bonus for a goalkeeper, you're getting a goal's worth of points there in DK. You're getting 10 points. So effectively, if we're looking for upside, I don't think we necessarily want to bank on it from an attacker because it's difficult to guess where that's going to come from. But I actually really like Ederson for his upside here if he can get the win and the clean sheet and a couple of saves. So really do like Ederson as a play on this slate for that reason. Now, I did mention Gundogan. 5,600 for Ilkay Gundogan, I think is a very nice price for this player. He's had an incredible season, 16 goals across the EPL and UCL this season, a kind of a breakout offensive campaign for him. And as I mentioned, he actually has the highest implied scoring odds on the slate. So, relative to the larger player pool on this slate, he may be one of the best options for implied upside at his price tag. He's also going to do enough in central midfield that I think he can get you a 5 or 6 point floor. So I do love Gundogan here at 5,600. We do need to roster at least one Chelsea player, and you can probably tell now by the way that I'm discussing this slate that I'm leaning towards rostering, probably 4 to 5 Manchester City players. But like I said, we do need to roster at least one Chelsea player in Showdown. I already mentioned Azpilicueta, but I think there is some lower end value. If N'Golo Kante starts at 3,400, he's going to do plenty of defensive work here, tackles and interceptions, and he's also dangerous on the counter. So he's another nice Chelsea piece that I definitely can see utilizing in lineups. You also have Jorginho at 4,400. He takes penalties for Chelsea, so don't love him as a cash play, but he's a great GPP play just on the off chance that he does win a penalty or Chelsea does win a penalty. He will be taking it. So not a bad value there at 4,400 for that potential upside. Just one other player I will mention in terms of value here is Ruben Dias, 3,200 for Manchester City. He's going to be starting at center back for them in this match. And much like Ederson, he has those 40% implied clean sheet odds. There is a 3-point clean sheet bonus for defenders on DraftKings. Diaz, again, he's going to get you a few tackles and interceptions. So at only 3,200, if he does get that clean sheet, he's going to end up being a really nice value. And he's going to allow you the flexibility to roster KDB, Foden, and Mahrez, potentially, if that's something you want to think about doing here. All right, guys, that is going to do it for DFS plays. But one more note on roster construction and DFS here. As I mentioned, it's a 2.5 or lower total right now. No player with implied scoring odds that's going to start this game of over 28%. So with that in mind, I think it's really important to focus on building a high floor lineup. And I think City players are going to be the higher floor players because they should have slightly more possession here and will be creating more chances, taking more shots. So I do favor a roster construction here with at least 4 City players, but potentially 5. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about a couple bets. So I don't often look at betting teams straight up when they're favored because the odds, the implied odds are not often great here. So today we can get City on DK Sportsbook at -114. And I actually really like that bet for this match, and here's why. Both Conte and Chelsea's goalkeeper Mendy are questionable right now. So it's hard to say whether either or both of them are going to play in this match. I'm sure the line obviously has that baked in here a little bit, but I can guarantee you that if Mendy or Conte are ruled out of this match, that line is going to move even further in City's favor. So I really like betting City straight up, because not only do I think they're going to win this match regardless of whether Mendy and Conte play, but if either one of those players miss out, Chelsea are in a lot of trouble here. Conte is so integral to Chelsea's midfield and their defensive shape. So without him in here, I'd be very, very worried about Chelsea defensively. And then it's actually probably even worse if Mendy misses this match in net. That would mean Kepa would likely have to start for Chelsea. If you follow EPL or Chelsea, then you're going to know that Kepa was bought by Chelsea not long ago as the most expensive goalkeeper in the world, and his confidence is just rock bottom. That's why they had to bring in Mendy to replace him mid-season. So I would be very worried as a Chelsea fan if Kepa had to come in and start in a Champions League final after he was benched due to poor form earlier in the season. So again, if either of those players miss for Chelsea, I think there's a very, very good chance that the line moves even further in favor of Manchester City. So I'm all about grabbing them right now at minus 114 in a match that I fully expect them to win. Just one note there, that minus 114 is regulation time. So if City do win in extra time, you would lose that bet. So just keep that in mind. The other bet I'm looking at here as an alternative, if you don't like taking a team at less than even money, understandable. You can also bet City to win this match by 1 at plus 250. I do think it's going to be a very close match, evenly fought. So even though I do expect City to win, I find it less likely that they'll win by multiple goals. So I really do like City plus 250 to win by 1 here. All right, guys. That was a lot of information I threw at you, but hope you found it helpful. The bottom line here is I do expect Manchester City, the more superior team, to win this match. Should be a rather low-scoring game, but I do favor a roster construction in DFS with 4 or 5 City players if we're talking about a cash build here. And then I do like betting City as well, with those couple bets that I just mentioned. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in here in the Mayo Media Network. Thanks for tuning in the entire season for these previews. It's been a pleasure to do these, and hopefully we can go out with a bang here. And I hope you have some success in both DFS and or betting. Thanks again. I'm Lee Snyder. If you have any questions about the match, feel free to find me on Twitter. DFS_advisor is my handle. All right, guys. Good luck out there and enjoy the Champions League final.